Nepal's towering mountains and deep valleys have inspired adventurers for centuries. Learn what makes Nepal such a wonderful modern destination in my talk with Rebecca from Rebecca Recommends.
Welcome to Paper Ink and Passports Travel. Today I am so excited to be talking to Rebecca from Rebecca Recommends about Nepal. This tiny landlocked country in Central Asia is one for fantastic adventure and culture. And Rebecca's going to share a little bit more about this wonderful destination. Rebecca, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me today.
Thank you, Sarah, for this lovely opportunity. It's such a pleasure to be with you here today. As you kindly said, I'm Rebecca Slater, founder of Rebecca Recommends, which I started 16 years ago. I consider myself an Ameri-Brit because I am British. You can probably tell by my accent, but I'm also proud to be an American citizen. And I was fortunate enough to be born into this incredible industry of travel. I grew up at one of the highest rated hotels in the UK that my father ran for 32 years. And really that fostered my love of travel, meeting people from around the world, different cultures, and really developed an appreciation of privately owned properties and those sort of magic makers within destinations that work with you and help plan those perfect trips for your clients. So that was really the foundation of Rebecca Recommends. We represent independently owned properties with what I always say is a real sense of destination that offer true hospitality, along with some of the best destination management companies, or on-sites, as you know we call them in the industry, around the world that curate bespoke trips and experiences within their destination. So we're really privileged to work with clients in the UK and Ireland, France, Switzerland, Israel, Turkey, Antigua, the United States, India, Sri Lanka, and your specialty is Australia and New Zealand. But as you mentioned, today we're really going to focus on Nepal for about the next 15 minutes, where we work with our two clients there, Ventures International and the Dwarkas Hotels. But anybody that knows me well knows that I have a real love affair with Nepal. And I know you're not meant to be biased and have favorite children, but Nepal is definitely one of my favorite destinations. We like to give love to everybody. And I was also very proud because in 2015, I was recognized as an honorary ambassador for tourism to Nepal. So, you know, one of my most important missions, I guess, in life is that no matter who is traveling to Nepal and how they're traveling there, I want them to have the very best experience that they can when they're in the country. So that's my little introduction for you today. I was thinking that maybe I would talk a little bit about Nepal to sort of set the scene, and then we can take it from there.
Of course.
So Nepal itself is about the same size as New York, but has an additional 10 million people living there. And as you mentioned, it's landlocked between two superpowers, China and India. It is one of the poorest countries in the world, but to me, it's absolutely one of the richest in terms of what it offers travelers that are going there. And within just 125-mile distance, you can travel from the southern plains, the Terai, which is pretty much at sea level, close to India, all the way up to 8 of the world's largest mountains, of course, including Mount Everest, which is the highest point in the world. So Nepal is definitely a land of contrasts, and I think you see that as you travel through the wonderful destination. And whilst I'm sitting here in Northern California talking to you, Nepal pretty much is really on the other side of the world. But once you get there, traveling within the country is really easy and doesn't take a long time, and it's really inexpensive to do. And the country very much heavily relies on tourism. So unfortunately, like so many of the countries around the world right now, millions of people are suffering because our travel industry just came to a grinding halt with the current pandemic. But Obviously, we are hopeful that soon we'll be in the skies again and
Yeah.
crossing borders. Um, so Nepal boasts 10 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So really it has an abundance of cultural, architectural and historical interest. It was also the birthplace of Lord Buddha and Lumbini, so it attracts pilgrims from all over the world. It has a huge diversity of flora and fauna, so incredibly beautiful, a wildlife lover's dream. Photographers as well. It's full of color and energy, and I know that you're in Kathmandu, so you can attest to that buzz and busyness and chaos that the city offers. But also festivals and people, and really such diversity from the pace and the busyness of Kathmandu through to the deafening silence of the mountains. And the nice thing is as well with Nepal, you can travel there all year round, although typically people avoid the monsoon season, which is from mid-June to mid-September. So the best times to go would be mid-October to early December, and then March probably through till early May. And I think at the level that we like to travel, Nepal really does offer incredible value. And as I said, we've been promoting the country for about the last 10 years, and working with vendors who really were the first company about 30 years ago to start taking discerning travelers into Nepal. And then we also are very proud to represent the two Dwarakas hotels, which have a lot of history. The one property that's in Kathmandu, and then the sister resort that's in Dhulikhel, which is about an hour outside of the city.
I know Kathmandu is the international airport, so most travelers are going to come to Kathmandu, stay for
Absolutely
3 to 4 days, and then
and then go on. Sure. So Kathmandu airport, obviously very busy. Usually we like to say at least 2 to 3 nights in Kathmandu. So the Dwarakas hotel that we represent is actually really conveniently only 15 minutes from the airport, but when it was first built, it was surrounded by paddy fields. So it wasn't, built up like it is today. The hotel was actually founded in 1972 by the family that ran it. It was Dwaraka Dashrath, who had this incredible vision, and really committed his life to preserving the architecture and the incredible wood carvings from the 15th to 17th century. So what I love when you arrive into Kathmandu, it is a little bit chaotic. You're still relying on the tractor gentleman going to collect your bags from the plane, and how long things will take to come off the belt. But I think that's the beauty of it. It's just so different to what we're used to, on a daily basis when we travel around here in the US. So, when you arrive at the hotel, there's this small wooden door, and then you enter into this incredible courtyard that's so tranquil and is surrounded by this wonderful architecture, traditional architecture, and these intricate hand-woven masterpieces that have all been preserved. So it gives this really distinctive royal feel to it. I say the hotel's almost like a bit of a living museum, and it's where any, famous people or royals or, any of our traveling, we would stay at Dwarakas. So it's just a wonderful property. They also have a lovely restaurant, Krishnapa, which is very authentic. You sit on the floor. It's anything from 6 to 22 courses, and it takes you on this sort of culinary journey that reflects the ethnicity and the different terrains of the country. So that's a really nice thing to do to sort of set the scene before you start traveling, throughout the rest of the country. And something else that I think is a must do, and you perhaps did this when you were in Kathmandu, is to visit Pashupatinath Temple. And this is 10 minutes walk just from the hotel. It's a World Heritage Site dating back to the 5th century. It's famous for its sacred Hindu temples, and it's along the Bagmati River. And one of the nice things, if you visit during the early evening, then you can sometimes hear the sacred Arati prayer. So that's always something that, again, is so important to Hindus and Buddhists from all over the world. Then another favorite city of mine is Patan, also known as Lalitpur and known as the City of the Arts. And Patan is the third largest city within Nepal, but it's still in the Kathmandu Valley, so about 25 minutes drive from the Dwarkas Hotel. And there you've got this wonderful square with lovely temples and a museum and the palace. And I really love Patan because it's sort of the home of all the artisans. So here you still find, I'm wearing my earrings from Nepal today and one of my pashminas. So I always indulge in a little retail therapy to help support the economy when I go to Nepal. But one of my favorite places to go when I'm in Patan is Image Arc. And this is a contemporary art gallery and boutique where they are really showcasing and supporting local artisans and Nepalese artists. So that's always somewhere that I like to pop into when I'm there. And then obviously when you leave Kathmandu, there's lots of different ways that you can put an itinerary together. And that's obviously why people working with you, that's your expertise in helping them guide. The second property that we work with, the Dwarkas Resort in Dhulakil, that is about an hour outside of Kathmandu. And you mentioned that you went to Bhaktapur. So you would drive half an hour to Bhaktapur, which is another wonderful, sorry, my cat has just come and decided to join. Sorry, Bob, can you please join us today? So he's obviously very interested in what we're talking about in Nepal. Yeah. So on your way to the Dwarkas Resort, yes, to take him back to Pur, which you went to, which in a way still shows a little bit how the ancient way of life was there with their pagoda style temples and the vibrant palace square and the market. And also it's known for its pottery and ceramics. And one of my favorite things to eat there is this buffalo milk yogurt, which is absolutely delicious and can only be found in Bhaktapur. So that's a nice little delicacy to have if you go there. And then about another half an hour drive on to, you come to Dhulakil, which is where the resort is. It's the only virtuoso property within Nepal. Okay. And Dhulakil was really an important trading junction between Tibet and Nepal. It's at this perfect altitude of 5,000 feet. So it has incredible diversity and beautiful rhododendrons and chrysanthemums. And then you get these amazing vistas. So these spectacular sunrises, great panoramic mountain views. And that's where the resort is located. So it's such a contrast from the busy, vibrant, bustling Kathmandu. And the resort was really a labor of love for the Dwarkas family. It's a wellness resort that's really focused on the ancient Vedic and Buddhist philosophies, which are very inherent to the Nepali culture. So it focuses on the complete well-being of a person. And I think the word authentic is often overused, but to me, this resort could only be in Nepal. And it's such a wonderful way to either kind of start the trip when you arrive and you want to decompress, or maybe at the end of the journey, which I really like. So you have a couple of days there to kind of reflect on everything that you've seen and done before you come home. Because the resort really offers everything from yoga, meditation, pottery, painting classes, cookery classes in their organic gardens. So, and one of the things that I always say is a must do is to take advantage of a consultation with their private Ayurvedic doctor. So this is to very much kind of restore personal harmony, renewal and growth, which is what I think we all need right now whilst we're stuck at home. So, whether it's in the Himalayan rock salt house or the crystal room, it's just this amazing contrast to what, we experience day to day. going to a spa here. So it's a really special place.
It sounds wonderful. You touched on needing a nice spa day when this is all over and we're back flying and traveling and exploring. But one of the other things you mentioned was getting out of the city and being somewhere. And we talked about this earlier, and is that we might start seeing a lot more of the more private, more wellness-based experiences after
Absolutely.
after COVID and once people are traveling again, which I think wellness ties in very well with adventure.
Absolutely.
Because after a hike, all I want is a nice spa day, or a good food and wine, as a little treat for all of the adventure that I've just done. But and I know Nepal, not very well known for their wine, but they have a wonderful culinary scene. But they have a lot of adventure too.
Absolutely. I mean, it's so funny you say that, because one of the massages is called the Himalayan Trekkers massage. So, I mean, it's very aptly named. It's like, it's my favorite massage to have, whether it's at the resort or the hotel. But you're so right. I think, people often say they travel to Nepal for the mountains, but they return for the people. But I also think when I've taken travelers to Nepal, a lot of other surprises that you touch on absolutely is the food, because for the most part it's organic, because they don't have chemicals and things to spray, and they very much farm, um, you know farm to table. They just go and pick their produce fresh every day, and the market, like a lot of other countries, as you know, in Asia, you go to the market every day to get your fresh produce to cook, so you can eat so well. One of my favorite things to do at the resort is to do a culinary class where you make momos. I'm not sure if you had momos, the kind of Nepali dumplings that
they're
are delicious.
delicious.
Yeah, so good. So when you've been hiking, or you've been and if you go to Pokhara, which is pretty much the adventure capital of Nepal, you can really indulge in so many activities there. So I think, people sometimes think of Nepal just for Mount Everest and for trekking. And maybe in the 70s and 80s, it was like a haven for hippies. But I think now we've come on so far from there, because it really is so diverse. And whilst I spoke a little bit in the introduction about different clients that enjoy going there, whilst I consider myself, an adventure traveler like that can tie in with wildlife and going to the Chitwan National Park to see the one-horn rhinos, or families with teenage kids who want to be gliding and hiking and mountain biking and whitewater rafting and doing all of those kind of things can enjoy that. And then if you've got clients who are really looking for something a little bit more off the beaten path, one of my favorite places within Nepal only actually opened up to the world in 1992, and that was Mustang. And Mustang is on the Tibetan plateau. It's derived from the Tibetan word which means plain of aspiration. And you take a short flight from Pokhara to Jomsom, which is where this tiny little airport is, or if your clients want to, they can also helicopter there, and we can help arrange that. But Mustang is so sparsely populated, which for me is very appealing, and a little bit like you're saying about how I think moving forward, people are going to really want to go to corners of the world where they can have these great experiences, but not be with thousands of other people. So, Mustang is one of those special places. And I still remember the very first time that I went there, when we went for a ride on these ponies. And first of all, the ponies arrive in like a herd, because they're just living outside in this herd, and they all have bells around their neck. And so when you ride them, you're at this kind of like 7,000 feet arid mountain desert, and then all you can hear is this like tingling-a-ling-a-ling, of these bells and the wind. And it was just incredible. Yeah, I mean, it really kind of, I can close my eyes and picture being there again. It's really, really special. so I think, whether it's Pokhara, Mustang, going to Chitwan for the wildlife, um, groups of friends, people that do have an interest, obviously, in yoga and Ayurvedic practices. There are huge amounts of NGOs in Nepal. So I think from a social responsibility side as well, we're sometimes asked to incorporate things like that into trips, which we can absolutely do. And and then we touched on the food. So yeah, I can't talk about that too much because I haven't had lunch yet.
Well, we could
So,
save something
yeah.
for next time too.
Exactly.
One thing that you haven't mentioned, you've sort of touched on it, but and we know Nepal is halfway around the world from us, so we're not going to take a weekend trip. But what's the minimum amount of time that a family, a client would go to Nepal? You want to fly to Kathmandu, have 2 to 3 days. You want to maybe go to Pokhara and do some experiences, potentially some hiking. I know base camp is a long trek. The Annapurna circuit is another long trek. But if you weren't interested in trekking, are we talking 10 days minimum or
Yeah,
14 days minimum?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
I think at least a week to 10 days to get to the different places. And you know, I think people might think, oh, I'm not so great with altitude. Well, I mean, Kathmandu is only at 4,000 feet, and you can go to Chitwan, which is sea level, and then Pokhara really is only at 3,000. So I think to do everything that we're talking about, then 10 days would be great. I think
Okay.
sometimes people do try to combine it with another destination, which is understandable if they're traveling all that way. So we do get often requests for Nepal and Bhutan, or maybe doing Lhasa, or going to Sikkim or Ladakh, or some other more off the beaten path places. But for me, I mean, when I have done sort of trips for clients, I'd say at least 10 days, even up to 2 weeks, you can spend there and still have lots to do.
Okay.
And so I think 10 days is a great amount of time for that.
Okay, wonderful. And combining with another destination, you mentioned that you can combine with India or Bhutan, or probably not all of India.
Yeah, I
You'd
mean,
want to
I
be
always
focused
say,
on.
yeah, I mean, I always personally prefer people to come do just Nepal so that it doesn't get sold short. But if people have a longer amount of time to travel, say 3 weeks, then brilliant. You can do Nepal and another destination. But I think really, do Nepal justice, you need at least 10 days. And I mean, like you said, we haven't even touched yet on Sagarmatha, which is Everest and the whole Everest region. And on my kind of bucket list, and or wanderlust list, I should really probably say, trekking to base camp has been on that. And you would think, because I've been to Nepal at least 10 times, that I would have done that. And whilst my uncle's done the trek, it's one of those things that I need to carve out a good 3 weeks to go and do that trip. And I have lots of friends, and you're welcome to join us, Sarah, that want to come and do that. It's just, making time in everyone's busy schedule. So yeah, that's on my list of things to do when I'm a future trip.
Gosh, carving out 3 weeks. I've got time now.
Exactly, I know. We'll have to do a virtual trek. We'll have to see if one of my friends that lives there would be up for going on his own, but taking us with him on his phone.
Yeah, or Google Maps maybe has street view.
Exactly. I know, so we could do that. But I think, some of the special experiences that we can organize for your clients when they're there, we can do things in a less amount of time, but of course we always like clients not to feel rushed and not to have one night stays, because that's just not pleasurable. But I know one of the things that you asked me, and I didn't want to jump ahead, but I'm just so excited to talk about it, was, one of my favorite experiences, or one of the things that I think is a must do for people going to Nepal, and that is what I call our breakfast on top of the world. So this, you know, is really a once in a lifetime experience, and you might have read about it. And it's and I feel like we're also privileged to travel to all these amazing corners of planet Earth. But this is an experience where clients can either travel from Kathmandu or go from Lukla. So your day starts at dawn, and you take your helicopter and you leave from Kathmandu, as I mentioned, to go to Lukla. Or if you've been staying maybe in Lukla or Namche Bazaar, your helicopter picks you up from there. And then you take this very short little flight up to Kongdi Lodge, which is one of the highest lodges in the world, at around 13,000 feet.
Oh, wow.
And it's located atop Kongdiri Mountain, which is a sacred mountain. Really, for the next hour and a half, you are just in this sort of magical sheer awe and wonderment of the magnificent views that you are looking at, because right in front of you you have Everest and Amadabla and Lhotse, and you know, just a whole vista of the Himalayas. Meanwhile, you are at this lodge, which often there's snow there, so it's so pretty, bright blue skies, warm sun. Even though you're at 13,000 feet, it doesn't feel cold. And then sort of below is one of my favorite places on earth, which is the very picturesque Namche Bazaar. And Namche Bazaar is this terraced little village that trekkers will go through on the trek to Everest. So you're looking at all of this, and there you are enjoying this incredible 5-star breakfast that's being served to you by beautiful Sherpa ladies wearing their traditional Tibetan dress, you know, eating a delicious omelette, sipping champagne, and you literally have to just keep pinching yourself because you can't believe that you are on top of the world. I mean, that is really how it feels. And I always think that that's something, if anybody can afford to do this, it's a really, really special experience that stays with people forever. And so, yeah, that's definitely one of my highlights if people are going all the way to Nepal.
That sounds perfect. It sounds like the perfect way to, I mean, end your time in Kathmandu or end your time in Nepal on this high, literal high of being in the mountains. Yeah,
absolutely, it is. And of course, we do also offer Everest. You can do the Everest flight, so you can see Everest if you know if a client's budget doesn't stretch for this. And then other lovely things to consider are being in Nepal for a festival. Again, because their festivals are so culturally different, we don't have festivals really in our culture. So for me, Diwali and the Festival of Lights, whilst it's also celebrated in India and some other countries, you know, you've got this beautiful 5-day festival, which is usually in October or November. And again, it's just something lovely and to incorporate into a trip when you're planning.
Yeah. Well, Nepal is such a different culture to ours, and we've talked about that a little bit. So I can imagine many of my clients and fellow Virtuoso advisors clients, you know, when I'm putting an itinerary together for New Zealand or Australia or Italy or Spain or wherever, it's never just culinary. It's never just adventure. It's never just culture. It's really all encompassing. It's, you know, you have the historical sites and potentially, you know, for example, in Italy, having breakfast in the Vatican. So I can imagine that a Nepal itinerary would be nothing less, you know, would be fully all encompassing. And then working with your DMC, you know, they're experts, of course, they're based in country. So
absolutely.
And your cat is back.
I know, Falcon wants to be. He does. He's not been to Nepal yet. I would love to take him so he could meet all of my friends there.
Oh,
I guess he wants to be in the limelight.
That's all right. He's welcome. My dog vanished. I don't know where he went. But I know we're probably at about 20, 25 minutes at this point. So We will sign off. And of course, any one of you watching, if you have questions about traveling to Nepal, please leave a comment. Rebecca and I will be happy to answer those questions. So Rebecca, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah, for this lovely opportunity. Look forward to sharing Nepal with you and your wonderful travelers.
Anytime.